Our next guest writes speculative fiction and raises children. He was born in Michigan, raised in Wisconsin, and resides in Illinois, which may explain why so many of his stories revolve around Midwestern oddities. He has worked for The Man as a consultant and washed the man's dishes for beer money and lodging. His fiction has appeared in fantasy and science fiction and weird tales, and he is available for beer and scotch tastings. You can find him on Twitter as @TomAtLarge. Please welcome Tom Underberg.
Good. All right. Thanks, Andrew, and thanks everyone for coming out. I'm going to read the first part from a short story called The Third Quality, and it's a ghost story, and like all good ghost stories, the ghost is secondary. Who would you haunt if you came back? Nance asked him. You, Parsons said at once. I'm serious, Nance said. Who would you haunt? He was serious. So, Pellborn in the main office, he lied. I'd haunt his computer, scare him out of writing those bullshit rules and regulations emails. Nance laughed. She had a good laugh. It wasn't melodic, but it had authenticity. She didn't fake laugh out of courtesy or self-consciousness the way he did. What about you? Parsons said. Oh, my ex-husband, I guess. She looked down at her laptop, the police report from their next call already up on the screen. It was his day to drive, so Nance was doing the research. Should we get ready? Sure, Parsons said, happy to go along with the subject change. Claire Barnes, Nance read, white, 39, left behind 2 kids, 13 and 16. The same age as Parsons' girls. It gave him a chill hearing that, like tragedy, was contagious. She married. He disliked the thought of the children finding themselves orphaned. Kids are with the father, Nance said. How'd she die? Texting and driving. Ran a stop sign, got T-boned by a delivery van. Damn. Nance made a noise that passed for agreement. She wouldn't think much of Clara Barnes, either as an object case in the hazards of distracted driving or as a possible ghost. Clara had a lover named Wyatt. She was on her way to his house when the accident happened. He's who called us in. Parsons winced, thinking now of the husband. He knew the pain of discovering infidelity. No chance of suicide. Suicide ghosts were the worst. We're good. Even the insurance company says so. Nance turned the laptop so he could see. Clara was your type. She looks like your ex-wife. Parsons chanced a quick glimpse, took in a regal face, blessed with the high cheekbones that made everyone look twice. Clara's beauty clear, even in her driver's license photo. The word gorgeous rose to his lips, but he bit it back. Clara was dead, and even alive she'd had sad eyes. Anyway, Nance was his type now, so he just said, she did look like Lucy. That's our ghost. Maybe. Did this guy Wyatt know she was married? It could feel ugly picking through the pieces like this, but it was the heart of what they did. Sifting through the details of a death was the way they understood the antecedents for the haunting. It took 3 qualities to make a ghost. A recent death was obviously the first. That's where ghosts come from. Haunting started within a week of death or never. The second factor, the critical one for their purposes, was the presence of some overwhelming emotion. On TV shows, it was always love or revenge. But in reality, any kind of strong emotion served. Lust, anger, sorrow, even things like regret. The trick to abating a ghost was identifying that underlying emotion and tailoring the process accordingly. And the third quality was the mystery, the thing that turned a death into a haunting. Someone died every 12 seconds in America, but only a few became ghosts. Parsons always suspected the third quality was tragedy or something similar, but they inevitably came across a haunting that didn't fit his theory. Claire Barnes had been beautiful, unfaithful, a careless driver. She was survived by 2 kids, a husband, a lover. Maybe one of those things meant she'd come back as a ghost. Or maybe her lover Wyatt had a noisy furnace and a nervous disposition. Think it's a false alarm, Parsons said. Nance shut the laptop with a snap. No, I think we find her ghost. She was too pretty to let this world go easy. Raised mounds, the size and height of inverted dinner plates, dotted the concrete floor of Wyatt's basement in strange facsimile of the upstairs tile. The humps were fragile, crackling underfoot. It's like walking on a beach, Parsons said. One of those rocky ones. I like my sand white, smooth, and fine, Nance said. Parsons prodded the floor with his shoe. Not a beach, really. More like the scree you found in the hills. It reminded him of haunted trails he'd investigated, ghost-ridden paths that led exclusively to cliffs and deadfalls. He'd abated hauntings in the Upper Peninsula for 2 years before his doomed marriage brought him to Chicago. How long has it been like this? Parsons asked. Beside him, Nance squatted over her shoes, poking at a partially collapsed mound with a ballpoint pen. Mr. Wyatt, he repeated, how long has it been like this? He turned toward the stairwell where Wyatt stood silhouetted, muscled arms crossed in front of his broad chest. In the dim light of the basement, the man looked half ghost himself. Since the accident, there's strange noises and bad smells, too. Parsons glanced down at Nance, slipping concrete shards into an evidence bag. The department shipped samples out to a lab run by the nephew of some politico for analysis. No one ever did anything with the results, but they kept taking samples anyway. That was Cook County for you. The graft came built in as pernicious and inevitable as winter. You were in the basement when the accident happened, Parsons said. What do you mean? Nance rose to her feet, sliding the evidence bag into her purse as she stood. Were you in the basement when Clara Barnes was killed? Her speech got clipped and flat when she was annoyed. No! A hint of irritation in Wyatt's voice now, too. His gratitude at their arrival had fled once they started asking questions. And they had to ask. Police reports never had all the relevant information. The cops were worried about possible crimes or notifying next of kin, not the emotional resonance of the deceased. Where were you then? Nance asked. Upstairs, watching TV. What show? Nothing, really. You were channel surfing? Nance strode over to Wyatt, her shoes crunching across the concrete. Parsons watched her walk, admiring the sway of her hips in her navy skirt. He should have told the truth about haunting her and why. I guess, yeah, Wyatt shuffled his feet. My mother died last year, Nance said. She was in a nursing home, right? Okay. Parsons and Wyatt got wary as Nance approached. And I remember I was driving home from work when I got the call, listening to the radio because I just finished my audiobook, and they were talking about how Jay Cutler was never going to be an elite quarterback. Nance was standing right in front of Wyatt now, like right there. And this caller said he'll never get the Bears to the Super Bowl until he takes his job seriously. And then they called and told me my mother was dead. The air in the basement had started to cool. A flicker of shadow darted across the basement floor, the quick dark light ripple reminding Parsons of a sunny day with high clouds rolling across the face of the sun. Standing here, in the dim of Wyatt's basement, it confirmed what he already knew. Clara had come back. He watched Nance question Wyatt. She was really good. People thought they understood interrogation from cop shows, but dealing with it in person was something else. Nance made sure they never missed a single sordid detail. The details mattered. Two hauntings that looked the same on the surface might require completely different techniques. It paid to get it right. Ghosts that survived their first abatement turned strange and dangerous. That was what the Cook County higher-ups never understood. They wanted everything standardized, checklisted. So I remember, Nance was saying, exactly what was on the radio when I found out my mother died, but you can't recall what was on TV when you found out Clara had been killed. She shot Parsons up. Can you believe this guy look? That was mostly show. They'd both seen worse. I wasn't watching exactly. I just kind of had the TV on. It was a home improvement show, I think. They were fixing up a media room in the basement or something. You were also texting, right? Yes. Wyatt glanced over his shoulder, looking back up the stairs toward the kitchen. The first floor, unmarred by strange mounds, clean and well lit, probably seemed a tempting refuge. Texting with Clara. Yeah. Did you know she was driving? No. Wyatt glanced away. Liar. And what did she say? The basement floor rippled, little waves spreading outward from Wyatt's feet to the far corners of the foundation. Wyatt grabbed the framing around the stairway for balance. He's going to freak out soon, Parsons thought. Nance noticed it too. What did Clara text before she died, she demanded. Wyatt pulled his smartphone from his back pocket, began to scroll through his texts. Here, see for yourself. See you soon, Nance read. The basement screamed, a howl not of anger or pain, but puzzlement and confusion, the sound vibrating up through the ground. The raised mounds in the floor erupted like miniature volcanoes, leaving oval depressions. Parsons' ears popped as the pressure changed. Wyatt fell backward onto the stairs, his legs splayed out in front of him like a rodeo clown. What the fuck? He screamed. The basement had grown dark, the last traces of sunlight coming through the windows obscured now by the spreading clouds of concrete dust. The air tasted of sour peat. You knew she was driving, Parsons said. He walked toward Wyatt, stepping carefully over the broken mound. Nance already had a grip on one of Wyatt's arms. He took the other. Together, they lifted the man to his feet and walked him into the basement. I didn't know. You knew, Nance said. It's why this is happening. Why what's happening? This, Parsons said. They stood before one of the shattered mounds. Parsons tightened his grip while they waited for Wyatt to process the sight. A saucer-sized eye peered up at them from beneath the broken concrete, oil-black pupil and moss-green iris staring out from the far side of death. The eye turned its gaze to them. This time, Wyatt and Clara screamed as one.